Hi, this is Kadvi Rana from Logistics Insider, and with me is Mr. Nikhil Nadkar. He's VP Ocean Product and Procurement Whiz. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Sir, because we are here at CCUB, it's very important that we start off by asking you about cold chain. So, how has the cold chain industry evolved over the years?
Well, firstly, Karvi, thank you very much for having me on this live interview, and thank you all for being a part of CCUB for so many years. I absolutely look forward to you all continuing this association. So, back to your question. I joined this industry back in 1997, and so much has changed from the time when we were young trainees and what we observed very up close and personal at the ports, what we observed with our customers, what we observed with our partners, whether they were the CHAs, whether they were the freight forwarders. So if I break it down, I'd say technology has played a very big part. That has evolved, and we can talk about that a little later. I think a lot of emphasis has been on training of staff, because I think back in the day we learned a lot on the job. We were told, okay, this is what you need to do, go and learn it from so and so individual, and there was no real, what should I say, structured program to explain certain aspects. And today there's also a lot of focus on compliance, which we used to cut corners on, and especially when it comes to refrigerated cargo and the cold chain. I think this is extremely important, that there is a very compliant environment, informed set of professionals through training, and then of course customers' needs have evolved a lot during that point, this period of time.
So I'm going to hold you on the technology part. So next gen technologies are emerging, and they're emerging fast. There is AI and ML, IoT and blockchain. How are we going to leverage these technologies to build a more efficient and resilient supply chain, especially for temperature sensitive products?
So Charvi, Karni, I'm no expert in the blockchain. I mean, of course we're exposed to it. I'm aware of some of the innovations that our own company has done and what some of the shipping companies have done, because my experience has been primarily on the ocean side of things. So if I look at the technology changes that some of the carriers have brought, I think that's in response to really what the customers want and the technology that was available at that time. So back in the day, we'd not even be able to track temperature excursions, which is a very, very, very big part of what the pharma and the cold chain and also frozen cargo actually wants. The technology in terms of the equipment and the hardware that was available has evolved significantly. I mean, when I joined the industry, I don't think we had the ability to freeze cargo down to minus 60 degrees, and that is possible. Of course, it comes at a significantly higher cost because that equipment is limited. Today, you're able to put on RFID devices, you're able to put in probes, you're able to put in GPS trackers, and these are all very, very commonplace today, because the quality standards that some of our customers demand and the customers demand of themselves is extremely, extremely high now. I mean, sensitivity to also global warming. I mean, when cargo sits, I mean, I know a little bit about air cargo. When it sits and temperatures in particular parts in the Middle East, or depending on external conditions, even in containers, can make a difference. So the equipment safety also, what's happened is there's a lot more training that has been given to people to be able to fix things on site. There's a lot more PTI that is done with reefer equipment, pre-trip inspection, to make sure that there are no malfunctions later on, and if there's people at hand to fix and remedy those, also on the vessels and also on the land and closer to where the equipment or the customers are. So these are some of the changes physically that have happened. In terms of blockchain, I know the blockchain is being used a lot with regard to bills of lading, with regard to finance, but I'm not so sure how it's affecting the cold chain specifically. So I'm sorry, I don't know what I can add to that.
So you are associated with the sea freight, and when it comes to transferring and transporting temperature sensitive products, there's always been a debate, but either to choose air or sea. So I'm sure you're going to favor C, but I would like to know why.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's not because I don't know enough about air freight, it's just that I've worked in shipping companies for most of my career, and I know for a fact that if you were to choose, and if you ask even suppliers to choose, the only reason they choose air freight is because one, they needed to get there much quicker. Samples move that way. Their inventory or their forecasting is not as good. So if you even ask the largest suppliers of air freight today, they would probably pick sea freight purely because of the cost and if they can plan better. So why sea freight? I mean, one, sea freight accounts for about 80% of way global trade moves today, right? It is the most efficient way of transporting cargo anywhere in the world. So with regard to perishables, as technologies evolved, initially the problem with moving perishables and pharma not as much as perishables, but perishables more so, that the shelf life of some of those products didn't allow for you to use sea freight, especially on longer, distances. But today, with better ways of packaging, better ways, or the quality of the equipment being more suited to handle certain types of cargoes, modifications made, the ability to actually track what's happening within the container. And people have done a lot more research and trials, to actually see what cargoes can move by sea and which can't. So I think a majority of customers today will choose sea freight over air freight, and that's not just me saying that, because that's something that I've lived and breathed most of my life.
Okay, so lastly, I would like to conclude by asking you, how are you liking this event? Of course, it's organized by WITS. So your thoughts on the event and the importance of holding this event?
I'll try and be neutral, even though I do work for Wiz. Yes, it's a great honor for us at Wiz to be able to continue the tradition that began, a few years ago in a former company. The CCUB has been very important to us because our mentor Satish believes heavily in the mission of this event, which is really about patient safety and making sure now that extends to the perishables and the food, where the consumers receive food the way it was meant to be. There's no wastage and loss in the supply chain, which we've seen a lot of in India. So the event is really an industry event to get all people within the supply chain, the cold chain, together to discuss problems which plague the industry. How can we do more to actually prevent wastage of food, wastage of medicines? All the topics today and yesterday that were discussed are industry topics. None of it is specific about commercial considerations. It's really about improving the cold chain. We have the backing of the Telangana government, we have the backing of many other industry bodies, and we have the goodwill of a lot of our partners, whether it's the shipping companies, the airlines, the airports. They all look forward to this event, and we have great joy in hosting them. So for me personally, I learn a lot at this event, also just listening to a lot of the panel discussions. This is a great opportunity for our colleagues to actually meet some of the vendors that they wouldn't otherwise be able to meet. And I think our team does a really great job doing all of this in-house. So hats off to Mayur and his team. I'm sorry I've not mentioned everyone's name by person, but they know who they are. And I think we look forward to continuing to do this and make this even bigger and better in future editions.
Well, thank you for your time, and we really appreciate Wiz's efforts
Thank you
towards
very
the
much.
industry.
Thank you.